So in order to provide value-based care, you got to have value-based data. So Linda, you're a practicing surgeon. How many patients did you see yesterday?
Yesterday, none.
Okay, day before?
So on average in ENT, we'll see anywhere between 20-ish patients in clinic.
Okay. So in your office, where do you collect your value-based data?
So that's what I was speaking about in terms of infrastructure. You alluded to it earlier, John. There really is no infrastructure or support to be able to collect the data that's needed to make value-based decisions. There is one other point I wanted to make, and it's that the political climate right now in this country versus south of the border is highly favorable for companies to want to stay. I was at a conference just earlier today, and Trudeau was doing a fireside chat with Eric Schmidt from Alphabet, and the level of engagement from all levels of government, industry in Canada around innovation, and that extends to healthcare, is phenomenal. Plus, if you add on to that what is happening south of the border, it makes it very attractive for companies to want to stay.
Okay, so we have the environment, but we have no infrastructure. So gentlemen, on the business side, how do we deal with that?
So I think, growing a company to the size where you can support that sort of value-based data. And to give you an idea, so I used to be an academic, used to be a professor at Ryerson. I used to be a PhD student with actually Alman here in medical biophysics. To submit an REB can take months and months and months. Then you have to have the patients enroll, which can take months and months and years. Then you have to analyze the data, which can take months and months and months. Then you have to get a publication, which can take up to a year. So for us and the strategy at 7D is we did not have a huge push to get that value-based data versus getting the KOL surgeon on our side, which was much more important. That was a surgeon who used it once or twice and became our person on the soapbox pontificating the gospel of 7D. And so we really haven't taken into account that value-based. When you look at an organization like Novadac or what Chris Shaw is doing with Baylis, there's a bigger opportunity to take that path, but we're not there at that early stage or an early growth company. I hope to be there one day. Give me another couple of years, but we're not ready for that level of detail.
So I mentioned my scenario of 25 patients in my clinic, my iPad entering stuff. I'm the data entry clerk and the care provider all at the same time. What was the value added that you offered back to your surgeon in order for him or her to become the disciple of, I think you used the gospel.
The gospel,
so I'm
yeah.
just using your words, for 7D?
So part of our approach is our background is in machine vision, and what we're incorporating is also artificial intelligence. So from our procedures, with one click of a button, I can completely quantify your entire procedure. So I can tell you in the workflow for our spinocranial procedures how long you were doing some aspect of the procedure. And with that, I can go back to you and say, with our technology, based on peer-reviewed material with other technologies, I'm saving you 10, 20, 45 minutes.
Right.
And one of the other value props with our system is no intraoperative radiation, and I can also automatically qualify that because I use none. So all I have to do is use some of those publications that exist using fluoro-based technologies, and I have an instantaneous comparison metric for the surgeon.
So your value added back to your clinician or data capture was time.
Correct.
Any other, do you have anything else to add?
I would actually extend what Bo said even a little bit further. You talk about, putting together an REB, getting the data, publishing, and all of that. And then there's the iterating and doing it again when you've learned your lessons.
Because everything works the first time.
Exactly. Right. So it comes back to, it all makes sense. We just have to really understand the challenges that that come with it, and make sure that we have methods to address all of that. And I think I agree with Arun in terms of the development of pilot programs and things are very focused around allowing these things to grow more organically and not expecting all of that data up front. I mean, we run into very similar situations to Bo in terms of, you need to get your clinical champion, you need to get somebody to sort of speak to, here's why I will use this device today, and build up that data set over the weeks and months and years.
Any questions? Yes, David.
So just sort of thinking about the way the future seems to be going. from the data integration digital perspective. We did a project with the province on something called Spark to try to allow access to the digital infrastructure of the province, because we didn't want all the companies to go just set up shop in Massachusetts where they have that infrastructure. So if we start to think about a future in which it's a digitally enabled society and we're collecting data because we want to see things paid for that actually have value, which I think is inevitable, it seems, not going that way would not have that infrastructure in the province of Ontario, and you would just drive that innovation somewhere else. So I found a bit of a disconnect between the idea that I'm just going to make stuff and sell it and get a KOL, because I'm going to sell into activity-based reimbursement in the US because they have a billing code, and I'm going to map to that and get it adopted, which is very old thinking from what I see, versus engineered healthcare systems of the future, which we're going to be doing Monte Carlo simulations to find out the dependency on this low specificity and sensitivity of that test and say, that is the technology we need to develop with targeting and much less waste in startup companies being created and falling by the wayside and poor use of venture capital. I see a big divergence, and it seems to me if you're in an ecosystem where you can model all this, you would start to see a much higher yield, and investors would go and put money there because you can risk abate with data, as opposed to this heroic, I'm doing a startup and I'm going to find my way there anyway. So there's this disconnect that I see with infrastructures being placed in data and proof of value before investment, agile, versus, trust me, I'm going to get over the wall. So I'm just trying to see the disconnect. It seems to me if you don't have that inevitable future of the model, the calculated, the predicted, then you're not going to be competitive making product or selling it efficiently. So I'm finding a disconnect. Maybe if anybody else is finding a similar disconnect.
No, I agree. I think that the context is changing. Again, one has to think of big wave changes. We're not talking about next year or the year after. These system level changes take 10, 20, 30 years, but that shift has begun and it's going to happen. And the danger is that if the technology companies don't change their view, they'll find that they'll be encircled with new players, and that will provide solutions, very sophisticated solutions to problems, and then the technology will be just commodity inputs to these. Unless there's a shift in the technology companies extending what they do to produce solutions. I think what I'm hearing is that 7D already provides that kind of solution, but I think that the shift is happening. And I think transitioning to an outcomes-based model creates this space for innovation, because the focus is not on paying for inputs or activities, focus on actually paying for outcomes, and how you deliver that, so long as one ensures safety and quality and certain standards, is really immaterial.
Any
So-
other questions from the audience? Yep.
Thank you very much. I want to just add something, build on something that David was saying, which is, I think David was almost alluding to the changing the meaning of what an unmet need is, right? Because today we have our methodology, or the methodologies, our intuition, or our databases with which we spot and validate an unmet need. And David was talking about a future vision where where we collect, analyze, and then visualize, express value-based unmet needs that we don't have insights to see today. So we don't even know that they're there. There's pockets of unmet need that we've got no idea about because we're not collecting, analyzing, or visualizing that data. So I just wanted to add to that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the point, is that once this data starts to flow, you can model exactly how that poor intervention, that surgical setting depends on those positive margins. And you can then run that number back and say, I'll put $100 million investment into a technology that solves this problem because I can see exactly how it rolls up into the provincial cost center. And that puts such clarity that it'll drive the direction of technology development. That's what I think is the way, to me that really
I think
changes.
that's a future path forward that doesn't exist now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think it will create a better marketplace, especially if the data is made to be quite transparent and it's collected efficiently. So it'll actually improve opportunities for startups. And frankly, I mean, they're already looking at and trying to adopt value-based care in the US in small scale at certain hospitals and in certain areas of disease. So, you know, it's not that we're trying to do something that's completely different. It's already being done, and we need to actually, it's an opportunity for us, quite frankly, to jump ahead because we can learn from all of the mistakes that have already been made.
Over to David for last thanks to Bo, Linda, and Aman. Thank you.